Welcome to my explanation of how to make this beautiful infographic. I have it all clear right here so you can see each step as we go through it. So here I'm gonna set some parameters. That's why I have the hashtag par here. Def.par, that's what I'm calling it, that's the name. So I'm basically saying, hey, this arrow is pointed at like, yo, this is the name. So we're gonna name it that. That's the name of what I'm about to put in. So par, and then we've got the parentheses open, no dot read only equals true. So par means parameters. It can be used to set, choreographical parameters. And then no dot read only, if it's true, there are no other arguments. Only parameters are par and call. So, yeah. So basically, only calling the pars. If there's other things within parameters you wanted this thing to look at, we would say read only false. Seems really like a weird no dot read only would make it seem like you can only read it, but whatever. That's what I found. So then we're gonna pull the data and explain it. So we're gonna go to our library that has all our pretty packages. Open parentheses, read Excel, close parentheses, and we're basically telling, hey, we want to use the read Excel package in this beautiful library. And so we're going to call this thing assignment 3. And then we're doing an arrow towards it. Again, we're running that. Little arrow means, hey, we're calling it assignment 3. And then read under line Excel. This part right here basically is telling it, hey, you're going to read an Excel file. Upcoming, we're going to read an Excel file. It's kind of a command. And you open parentheses with the quotation marks, assignment 3.xlsx. That's the name of the Excel file I want it to read. So that's why it's like that. And again, it's in those quotation marks because it's a name. And then we put a comma because, boop, we're going to about start something new. Call, C-O-L, underline types, means what are the column types I'm about to use. Equal sign C, so the C means combine, basically. So we're getting like outputs for parameters that we use in the function in the future, like columns or rows and things like that. So open parentheses and then some quotation marks text, comma, quotation marks text, comma, quotation marks numeric, comma, quotation marks numeric, parentheses. Now, this is all basically telling you what each column within the data is, the type it is of data. So this is text data because it's names, race because it's text data because it's, names, and then numeric because it's numeric data. And that's how I want to already know what that is. So we're going to go ahead and run everything I've already explained so you kind of see it happening as it does. And then we're going to hit view assignment 3. So it can just pop up right here and look at it. It's showing us assignment 3 so we can kind of check that. So now we're going to the matrix and offsets and all that beauty. So my matrix is what I decided to call my matrix because it's my matrix. I would have been called to call it the matrix. You win some, you lose some. The arrow points into my matrix. And then matrix is basically saying like, hey, we want to make a matrix. This is like the, thing means, hey, yo, we're about to start making a matrix here. And then we do open, parentheses, C, parentheses. So again, we're doing one of those combined. We're combining some data to get some outputs for parameters in this functional. 1, 2, 3, So what do these numbers mean and why are they there? So 1 means the first plot I'm going to do below this. I want to be in that location. And then comma saying I want that plot to also be in that location, the first one I do. Then the second plot I run down here. 2 will go in that location and 3 will go in that location. So the numbers are important because it says, hey, this is where I'm going to put these plots that I'm making, these graphs, I guess you would call them plots, graphs, whatever. And that's where I want them arranged within this infographic. So comma, in row equals 2, that's the number of rows that I want in my matrix that I'm creating. And in column equals 2 means I want 2 columns in my matrix I'm creating. And then we can go right here in my matrix to kind of see what it looks like. So I did that to make sure I could double check that I did code this thing right. So you run that, and right down here you can see that. So we have the rows, the columns, right, 1, 1. So that's where those will go, right, to the left, how we wanted it. And then 2, 3. That's kind of how we want to arrange this because we wanted everything on the left to be one graph and then 2 and 3 to be on the right side in that order. So that means whatever order we plot these graphs is going to change. It's important because it's whatever order it's going to go in down here, 1, 1, 2, 3. So make sure to keep that in mind as you tell your matrix and code down here. So now that I know my matrix is right, everything's preloaded really for how I want it so far. We're going to go ahead and do more matrix stuff. I tricked you. So right here, layout is basically going to tell it how I want my matrix to be, the layout one to be, the heights and widths. So the layout thing's telling, hey, I'm going to tell you some heights, widths, some how I want my matrix to be laid out, you know, how big and small I want those. So open parentheses, mat equals means matrix equals, what's the matrix I'm referring to? My matrix, which is the thing I named up here for the matrix I created, comma. So that means for the layout that I'm trying to plan is for my matrix, that matrix. Heights equals C, open parentheses 2, comma 2. So that's the height of the 2 rows I want. Again, where I'm saying that C is that combine thing, getting those outputs from the parameters in the function. 2, comma 2. So that means I want it to be 2 is the size I want it in comparison. So really these are all like kind of comparing themselves to each other. So 2, 2. The width I want it to equal, again, we're combining together 1, comma 2. So the widths of the 2 rows. So I'm basically saying that I want the width of the, oh wait, I said row. Yeah. I want this width to be smaller. So I want this part to be smaller, this to be bigger, but I want the heights to be equal. I don't know if I technically called them both rows, but you know what I'm saying. And then you can hit layout show equals 3, so that would show the first 3 layouts and how they would map. And I'm only wanting to look at 3. I could put 4, 5, 6, whatever, see how it would continually run, but I'm only interested in 3. So we're going to do that. So you can kind of see right here. So you see what I'm talking about? I want the widths to be, this one to be half the size of this one. So that's why I put 1, comma 2. And then I wanted these 2 to be equal size. So that's why they're both 2. The reason I want this one to be half of the width is because this bar graph I'm going to do is only like 2 categories, and I can kind of squish it to save room by making that smaller, and therefore you can see these graphs better. So that's why I did that. But that's what that all means. So now we're going into the margin sizes. So par means, again, we're saying some parameters for the infographic we're creating. Open parentheses, mar equals is the margin. So we're telling it, okay, some parameters we're going to set. We're going to set the margins equals C, again, combining these data. 5, 4, 2, 0. So this is how much we want the image to move. Now the reason you kind of have to play around with these, I set them all to 0 at first and then saw where everything landed, and it was really messy. And so I played with the numbers to get them to where they were not overlapping at all. And I found that by telling it that I wanted to move 5 standard units up from the bottom of the page. That's what the first one number here, it means bottom, so how high I want it to be from the bottom. That way you could see the x-axis. From the left, how many units do I want to move from the left? I want to move 4. That way you can see the y-axis is what I found. And then from the top, I wanted to go 2 down so you could see the title. So it's 2 standard units down from the top. And then right, that's how much I wanted to move from the right side. I didn't want this one to move at all because there was no need to. So that's what this part means. I'll run it after I explain the bar plot, and I'll run it with that so you can kind of see what it ends up looking like. So our bar plot, that means I want to create a bar plot. Simple enough. Open parentheses, not comma. Tables, that's saying that what table I want to call upon for this assignment. Assignment 3, so that is the data I want to call up right here, the data. $ race, so I'm looking at assignment 3 race, this data, that column. And then comma, horizontal equals false. So if horizontal equals true, then the bar plot is horizontal. If it's false, it's vertical. We want it vertical for this one because that's what you wanted for some reason. Comma, main equals a quotation number of race. That's the name of the title I want for this graph. Comma, xlab equals apostrophes race. So I'm saying that the x-axis, the label, because xlab means the x label, kind of makes sense, not lab, like a laboratory. The x label is race. Comma, ylab equals means I want the y-axis to equal something. What do I want the y-axis to be? Y label, what up, is a number of employees, comma, last equals 3. Now that sounds weird. And last is basically the orientation of the tick marks. So there's a lot of numbers set up for the standards. 0 is a default parallel, so if you don't put anything, it's that. 1 is horizontal, 2 is perpendicular, and 3 is vertical. I changed mine to vertical because if not, you couldn't really see them with it being as crowded, and it made it much more clear to see. So that's why I did that. I'll go ahead and run that, and so we can see it right here. See how these are vertical. It makes it easier to read. There's race, which is the X lab, all that. And see how it went into the one spot? Because it's the first one we ran. All right. Coming up, again, like I said earlier, bottom, left, top, right. How much do we want to move from those areas? So, again, the parameter we're setting up, the margin, like where we want this, baby, equals combine. We want it 5 from the bottom. We want it 2 from the left. 5 from the left, geez. 2 from the top and 1 from the right. Now we had to do 1 for the right because it actually, the graph kind of was like pushed off of the visual and it did 1 from the right. So I'm moving it 1 unit from the right side, then you could see it all clearly. And then this is the histogram we're doing second. So hista is for histogram. Open parentheses, assignment 3, $week quit, because I want to look at the assignment 3 data frame right here. And I want to look at the column of week quit, because that's like the turnover. And then comma, breaks equals 11. So breaks is how many, in a histogram, how many different, basically like columns on the graph I want to create, how many breaks within them. 11 worked out, so it's 10 data points. And that makes the most pretty sense with the data. Comma, xlim is the x limit. So what do I want the x-axis to be, like the points on it? I made this consistent with the next graph because it's important, since they're on top of each other, it visually looks pleasing, and 1 through 10 makes sense for both of them. So 1 is the first data point, 10 is the last, comma. Again, C means we're combining them. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I'm not going to say it right every time. I sure do hope so. But yeah, we're combining it. The combine, getting those outputs from the parameters and the function. Main equals weekly turnover with the quotation marks, again, because it's the name. Calling it weekly turnover for that title. Comma, X lab, the X label, the X access label, quotation marks, weeks of turnover. So I'm going to call it week of turnover. Comma, Y lab equals quotation mark, number of employees. Basically just means I want the Y axis to be called number of employees. And then, end of the, thing there. This little baby. So I'm going to go ahead and run these together so you kind of see how that moves it. Right there. So yeah, as I said, 1 from the right, that means like it was before, it was kind of like on the edge, and moved it 1 to the right, went boop, to right there. So that's what I mean from the right, from the top, from the bottom. Like this graph initially was like boom, like the bottom of the graph was like here and it was there, and that's why I had to move it so many up from the bottom, 5 up from the bottom, so that you could see all this pretty stuff and it wasn't just the chart. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. All right, so now that we've done these two, we're going to do the hard one, the density plot, comparison density plot. So first we're going to pull up the library, the SM library. I'm just going to call that real quick. sm.density.compare, it's the code for basically saying I want to make a density plot. And then open parentheses, assignment, $week quit. Again, we're looking at assignment data frame. And we want to look at the column of week quit, comma, assignment 3. Again, we're looking at assignment 3, database, and $race. We want to look at that race column, comma, xlim. Again, we're looking at the x-axis, access. And we're combining with that data and make some output, like I said 1 million times. And it's 1, 10. So again, we're starting at 110. Like I said, these two are gonna have the same right here. This is 1, this is 2, this is 4. You go with it. Comma, X lab equals week of turnover. So the x-axis I want to be called week of turnover. When did they turn over? And the title, the main title is turnover right race. So here we go. We are running that. So right here I didn't name anything because the density comes up. That's why I didn't name the y-axis. Now, did I explain this part? Did I skip it? I don't know if I explained this part. We're going to go backwards. Did I? Darn daddy. Okay. Hold on for a second. And we're just going to run this all so we can go like this back to where we were. All right. There we go. We're back to where we were a little while ago before I ran anything. Now I'm pretty sure I explained this well, but I don't know if I explained this. I feel like I might have skipped it. So we're going to go over it really quickly again. If I already did, I'm sorry. You can skip ahead. 5 from the bottom, 5 to the left, 2 to the top, from the top, 1 from the right. Again, that's what I mean there. Par, send the parameters, margins, where we're going to put those margins at, equal that, creating the value label. So here, race.d. So here I'm creating the factors that I'm calling race.d. Again, we're naming it. That's what the little arrow means. Factor, open parentheses, assignment, $3 on race. So I'm trying to create the levels for the race column. Levels equals combined, open C 1, 2, because I have white and POC. I have 2 categories, comma. So that's all that I'll need. Labels equals C combined, open parentheses, white quotation marks, comma, quotation marks, POC, close parentheses, close parentheses. Now, I wouldn't have to do this if I was just doing a density compare. But I am going to create a legend, and I will be referring to race D there. See, like right here. So I have to create for that, which is why I think I forgot to explain it at first. Oopsie. Maybe I didn't. Sorry if I didn't. But, okay. We ran it. Something about it felt wrong to my brain. So now we're adding a legend via a mouse click. So we're doing the rest of the steps for that. So co-fill is the name, is what I'm calling this. And I'm, the arrow again is calling that. New variable, pushing it all in. Open parentheses 2, colon. That means we want to go through the whole thing like 2 times to check everything. Open parentheses 2. Again, there's 2 levels coming in that I'm going to have, like we referred to earlier, plus length. So what is it that we're referring to with the length is, the levels of that race that we made earlier that's referring to, open parentheses, levels. So we're looking at the levels of what for the length? So what is the length of it? We're looking at the levels of race.d, which right here we got 2, right? And the labels are that. So it's basically time we're looking at that thing for the levels. Then legend, open parentheses, locator 1 means basically wherever I point, it's gonna go. Comma, levels of race D. Again, now we're looking at these levels, right? Fill equals coal fill. So this whole thing right here, co-fill that I created, also equals fill. So the color fill for the legend will be the same as the co-fill. Alrighty, then I do that, and I get to click wherever I want to make my legend. I'm gonna go here. I think I need to go a little bit more to the left and up on the actual thing, but it's fine for now. And then dev.print right here. So I'm running that. So what this does, dev.print, open parentheses PDF. So I'm telling it that I want to print this image into a PDF. That's what this means. Dev.print is basically what we're calling, hey, I want you to print this image. Open parentheses PDF, comma. That means I want you to print it into a PDF. Open parentheses. This basically means on my user, their desktop for the user we're on right now. Data viz class with the folder I want this to go into, and I'm going to call this PDF that's going to be created infographic. Whatever I put here is what it'd be called. So I could call infographic daddy, infographic C. I just call this infographic B, so you can tell I'm not bsnu.pdf. That's how to code said location. And then par opens def.par, close. It's basically saying, hey, I'm done making the parameters for defpar, the thing I started earlier. What up with that? So I ran all the code. Let's go see if defpar is where I told it to be. Oops, sorry. You could just snoop on anything. Really? There's my database class. And where is it? Infographic. Whoa, do we have to do that afterwards? Probably. Let's just do that one more time. Here we go. Change the B after. Silly me. Ignore me. Well, I can tell that by it says 9:14. Ignore me. So we've got this up right here, right? And the page I created, page 1, is right here. Now how am I going to make this from a Word doc to a PDF and combine the two? Watch me. So this is page 1, right, that I created. Oh, and the date is about crime scene cleanup. So that's fun. I'll put a whole new meaning to it for you. Go ahead and watch all that. All right. So I'm going to save this as a PDF. I want it to go in the date of his class. So export it. So now I've got this as a PDF right here. Perfect. Now I am actually going to change this a bit, because if you see, it exported as PDF, but it's tiny. And when I combine it with that, it comes out kind of tiny. So I am going to export as PDF, show details. Now I'm going to change the paper size to 8x10, which makes it more like actual piece of paper. Now I'm going to save this one to desktop versus where it just was. Or you know what? I'll save it to David's class. Yo. I'll call it BS, because I don't do no BS. All right, see where Infographic BS is. Here we go, BBSS. You know what I mean. So we open that. All right, see, this is the more appropriate size that we wanted. So now we go to thumbnails. And thumbnails. And we take this one and move it there. Just as simple as that on a Mac, ain't it? Nice having an overpriced Mac. So that is how I got this document into one. And then I'll probably just go ahead and save this baby, you know, share it, print it, post it, change the name. Actually, yeah, I probably should change the name to assignment 3. Anna Crawford final doc. And there we go. That is how I did my assignment. Have a good old day, and I hope you enjoyed this long video.